Welcome everybody to another Future Impact Skills Profile, and I'm thrilled to have Christian Saffioti from Morgan's Financial joining us today. We're talking investment advice, and we're specifically talking about the importance of sales and networking for building a great investment advice career. So Christian, let's start with just a bit of an introduction to you, your role at Morgan's, and perhaps also a bit of a definition of what is an investment advisor.
Yeah, firstly, fantastic to be here. Thank you, Yolanda. Firstly, the investment advice piece, it's a subset of financial planning. So obviously, as a financial planner, as a full service financial planner, you need to think about tax planning and estate planning and insurance. And, there's a lot of different kind of parts of it. But investment advice is one which I have always thought is very, very important. So, that is obviously advising clients on direct equities, managed funds, getting investment mixes right, risk profiling. There's a lot that goes into it, but essentially managing stocks for clients. So my background at Morgan's, I actually started as a financial planner. So I was full service and found that investment advice was the piece that I really enjoyed the most and that I was probably the best at, and decided to specialize a little bit more in that. So it definitely attracts a certain type of client, I think, but it's something which some financial planners don't do as much work on, but here at Morgan's, traditionally, because we do a lot of work with direct equities, it's something we do a lot of.
Yeah, great. And maybe if I can also take this point to highlight for our Future Impact community that the reason why we focus on investment advice alongside investment management is that really this, growing retail private wealth sector is a huge growth opportunity for people that are passionate about markets, want to work in investments. And the difference is when you're an investment advisor for someone like Morgan's, you're making investment decisions for individuals, often high net worth or family offices, as opposed to doing it on behalf of institutions.
Correct.
So that's just a bit of a distinction for those that are familiar with the careers in investment management. So let's talk about sales and networking then. So tell us, where does sales and networking fit into an investment advice career?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. I think for a lot of, especially junior or upcoming advisors, it's something that goes a little bit under the radar. For many, they're quite lucky because they get fed a stream of clients, and it's all quite systematic. But for me, I wasn't in that scenario. So sales has become pretty well the cornerstone of growing my business. Now, it's a dirty word, unfortunately, and I think a lot of people are a little bit turned off by it. But I think when you can master, the ability to get clients in the door, to sit them down, face to face always works better, and genuinely just talk through, their goals, identify their pain points, and really sell not just the service that you're providing, but yourself. Because a lot of the time, with an investment advice career, it is a long-term relationship, ideally, that you have with our client, and so you don't want to just necessarily be, calling them up once a year, telling them to buy BHP and sell Fortescue. It should be a lot deeper than that. And that goes into, knowing them and what they really value and what they care about, and their goals and the things they like to do on a weekend, how their family's doing, what their dog's name is. It falls a lot deeper than that. And so I think, sales and your ability to dig deeper, they're quite intertwined.
Great. So what I'm hearing then is that sales in investment advice is really about building deep relationships with your clients so they can trust you.
Spot on. Yeah, exactly
Right.
right. I think with investment cycles, as we all know, it does go up and down. If you have a very surface level relationship with a client, it's very easy to lose them when things aren't going so well, if they're not incredibly educated about how market cycles work. So, I think that's so important for not just bringing clients on, but client retention as well.
So let's then talk about bringing clients on, because I know particularly for women, this can often feel really daunting. As you become more senior, your remuneration is entirely linked to a commission structure, right? So your ability to be able to
Absolutely.
bring clients in the door. What have been maybe a couple of the most successful practices that you've had to win new clients and grow your book? What are your top three tips for somebody
Yeah.
overwhelmed by that thought? How can you
Um,
demystify it for them?
yeah. Okay. I think the first thing is treat it in a way which doesn't come off as too salesy. I know I'm trying to, reiterate the importance of sales, but genuinely just sitting there and having a conversation. I always start off my meetings by saying, tell me about yourself. And getting into a little bit of an introduction of them, as I said, and who they are and what they value. In that way, I think you can kind of, number one, establish rapport, but also not come across rather as someone who's sleazy or who's purely wanting just their business and nothing more. At the end of the day, we are in a trust game, as you said, and in order for people to trust you, you need to be able to, as I said, dig a little bit deeper. So I think that's probably the first thing, is try not to come across as too salesy. Treat it as a conversation between two different people who are sitting at a coffee shop, wanting to get to know each other. So I would say that's really helped. Know your value proposition too. I know for me as a younger advisor, I probably don't look like a typical financial advisor, if that's something you think about. But as a younger advisor, I think my value proposition is definitely that I'm not going anywhere. I've got a very long career ahead of me, and that's very attractive. I think for a lot of clients who have potentially been passed around by senior advisors before, and have kind of struggled with that. So definitely know your value proposition and where you come in. And yeah, I think just treat it as well. Me personally, I like getting to know my clients, as I said, on a deeper level. So bringing in that interpersonal aspect, I would say, is very important.
So what about finding new clients? So,
Mm.
it's one thing once you've got somebody in the door to build that relationship and understand their needs, so you're better able to ultimately win their work.
Yes.
Where do you even go about finding new clients?
Yeah, yeah. So I have gone out, and my very first thing that I did when I became an advisor, was I went and cold called a whole heap of accountants. Now that's not for everyone,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
think it's a skill that has worked wonders for the growth of my business, certainly. And from there, you meet them a few times, you get to know their business, what they need. And it can take 6, 12, 18 months before they refer the first client. But once they do, and it's very important, of course, that you do a good job with that first client, as is with all clients, then, yeah, they start to refer more and more. And that can definitely put a rocket ship under your business as a younger advisor kind of moving forward. So accountants, I think it's definitely tried and tested for a lot of advisors, but it genuinely does work. And also just not being afraid to ask the question to acquaintances, to colleagues, people you see at sport, getting the word out that that is what you do for a living, and you'd like to think that you're quite good at it. I think that is so important, and it's being not afraid to put yourself out there, because it really does pay dividends over time.
Great.
So yeah.
So referral networks, a bit of kind of proactivity in finding those people, a bit of a long-term mindset. These things take time. I'm
For sure.
certainly hearing you there, and not being afraid to ask for referrals or ask for work, see where you
Mm,
can add value. What
absolutely.
about networking? How do you find networking? Where do you figure out the best places to spend your time in raising
Yeah.
your profile?
It's a good question. I think it's something that so many advisors grapple with. Maybe they're in the wrong place for quite a while, but they keep persisting at it. I know, there's advisors here who have been going to Chamber of Commerce events for years, and, haven't picked up a client or an accountant. Look, I think that's very unique and situational to the person that you are. I'm actually not from Sydney. I moved here a couple of years ago, but yeah, definitely the circles within this city can sometimes be a little bit hard to crack,
Yeah.
and that's something that we all grapple with as advisors. So if you didn't grow up here, maybe you need to kind of look at some alternative avenues. Sports clubs are always good. I've joined a few, and that's been really great in terms of meeting people. Being in the city too. We're based in right in the CBD, and even going going out to some conferences and other functions, corporate functions. You just meet people, and slowly you build your network out from there. So I would say it's important to put yourself where you think those networks might be, number one, but also number two, position yourself as someone who has a long way to go and isn't just hungry for business. It needs to be, like I said, a very natural, easy interaction with the people that you speak to. It shouldn't just be forced, because people smell that from a mile away. I think if you're, purely just trying to generate business out of them, then they're a little bit put off by it. So put yourself in the position to be able to profit from that, I guess.
Yeah, great. So I'm hearing know your value proposition and how that's unique to you. So you can show up with some kind of integrity that's kind of aligned to your values, so it doesn't feel sleazy. You're focusing on relationships, not sales. And no doubt when you get from that as well, you get some good insights into the types of topics, themes, outcomes that then give you cues to then go back and connect with. Yep. And get yourself into certain networks and groups that align to your interests as well, that allow you to build out your network. It sounds like it's almost like kind of, making new friends as well.
Yeah.
It's really
more or less
putting yourself out there in a way to grow a relationship base that might end up becoming clients.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think if you are, just one thing to add on the last point, I think if you are kind of mingling within centers of influence that you're comfortable with, you don't come off as an imposter. It's much more easy and fluid. Like I've played football, soccer for my whole life, and joining those types of teams is very, very easy. And it's because it's what I know. And for other people, they might play golf. They might, go to other different book clubs or social events or whatever it is. You're right. When I'm saying it out loud, it does seem like you're just trying to meet new friends, but genuinely, it really is. And I think it's if you can find a way to meld those two, the business and the social side, I think you'll do well.
Yeah, great. And so it's almost like if you're somebody who just loves building relationships and has a passion for markets and investments, but might not necessarily enjoy the more intense technical side of say constructing large portfolios for a super fund or going through massive due diligence for a private equity deal, but you love markets and you love talking to people and building relationships, then this is an incredible career path.
Couldn't have said it better. Actually, that's when people ask me, how did you get into advice or why did you get into advice? That's more or less the exact answer I give. I didn't want to be, an analyst sat behind a screen, crunching numbers all day. That is for some people and they love that, but it's not me. But I also, didn't want to just be, talking to people all day. So this I think is a really perfect in between and sweet spot for me in terms of what I was passionate about and what I was good at. So
And they say when you find, we call that zone of genius, when you can actually find work that you're passionate about and good at, that's the best use of your time and talents, and you'll never work a day in your life when you manage to build a career based on that.
For sure. Yeah.
So thank you so much for your time, Christian. This has been a great little sample into what it is to build a client book, to practice sales and networking in a way that feels like it's not dirty or sleazy, but actually feels rewarding, fulfilling, inspiring, and also profitable and able to have you build your own financial security as well.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for your time, Christian.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Thank you, Linda. Bye.
Bye.